Hi, you're back with me, Gerrit Viljoen from Ultima Financial Planners, and this is the eighth feedback session on the six investments that we started tracking on the 1st of April 2020. So it's a comparison between six investments, and the investments that we included was the Allan Gray Equity Fund, which represented South African equities. Then the Allan Gray Money Market, which represents the money market fund. Portfolio Metrics Offshore, which is pure offshore equity. Also, we included gold and we looked at Kruger Rands. Then we also included Bitcoin and also property, which was presented through the Prudential Property Enhanced Tracker Fund. So these are the six investments that we started tracking, and we did it because many investors through the past 6 years before that time actually thought that an investment in fixed interest, specifically the money market, will consistently outperform all other investment classes. Now we know that the money market will outperform in certain circumstances, and we'll also look at that a little bit later on. But is it true that the money market will always outperform? So we started tracking these investments. And if we then look at the six investments, we actually see now the 1st of the 4th, 2020, where our 6,000 Rand increased to basically 12,866. But also we can see that the 1st of the 4th, 2021, we achieved the highest value of 15,000 Rand, and that was because of Bitcoin. So if we then just look at the inclusion of these investments, so we strip out Bitcoin and we look and we see that the South African equities represented by Allan Gray performed the best. Our 1,000 Rand actually increased to 1,800. We also see that the property fund, which I thought wasn't going to do that well, that increased to about 1,500 Rand. And then the offshore fund, represented by Portfolio Metrics, actually had a steep decline the last quarter. And then we see the money market, Allan Gray Money Market, steady as always. And we see the Kruger Rands over this period actually underperformed and performed even worse than the money market fund. Now we know that Kruger Rand should have actually performed much better now with the crisis in the Ukraine, but we see that the Kruger Rands are lagging. So if we then include Bitcoin, we can see that Bitcoin actually skews this whole investment comparison, because we saw that Bitcoin actually went up the 1,000 Rand up to 9,000 Rand by itself, and then we had a steep decline and in between, from basically the 1st of August 2021, we saw a slow rise in Bitcoin again. So at this point in time, Bitcoin is still by far ahead of all of the other investments, and that has pulled our investments up so that we basically after 2 years still are doubling our money, our 6,000 Rand that we invested. And people thought that Bitcoin would actually go lower. I don't know, as I always say, what Bitcoin is going to do. But if we then just look at what happened with all of our investments, and there we can see that Allan Gray was just a steady rise since the first quarter. Also, the money market, obviously, that pays a fixed interest at the moment, about 4.5%. We can also see that the offshore funds did quite well, but there in this last quarter, we see that there's a sharp decline. Then we see Kruger Rands as we expected, and Bitcoin, which shot up and then came down again. So we had this outlier that took Bitcoin up to almost 9,000 Rand, our 1,000 Rand. And then Prudential Property actually also performed quite well, that we see. So at this point in time, we're not doing too badly, even though we are in a crisis in terms of what's happening in the Ukraine. Might be a World War III coming up. If Russia defaults on their debt, our Rand will be influenced quite a lot. But at this point, we're chugging along nicely. So in closing, I just want to look at the long-term statistics that we have. We've now analyzed 2 years data. But this is a graph of three very important investments, being the orange one at the top is the South African equity market since 1950 to 2021. The yellow line is the money market investment over that period of time, and the green line is inflation. Now, inflation has been stripped out. That's why if you invested 100 Rand in 1950, it's in real terms today 2.358310 million, which is quite a remarkable feat. It's only 100 Rand that's been invested. So if we look at the comparison, we do see that there were basically two times those black circles where the money market outperformed inflation. And actually, for quite a while in the 1985 to round about 1992, but it really never for any longer period of time outperformed the JSE. So in conclusion, we can still see that over this period of time, that South African equities outperformed the money market by a large margin, and even inflation. Now, we always say that inflation is the great detractor of value of any investor. So you should always evaluate your investment basically against inflation, because that gives you the real returns. So what can we say at this time? We can really say that even in this turmoil, that the money market didn't outperform all the other investments, Kruger Rands, but that's not an investment that normal people invest in on a daily basis. And yes, our South African equities actually performed excellently. So we'll see what is going to happen in the next quarter. We're going to see what's going to be the effect of the war in the longer term. We don't think that war is that bad for markets. It's terrible for people, but we will see. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.